Holy chapter 249 of J has dropped. The leaks came early tonight and the chapter is just absolutely bonkers for my anim onlys. Get the hell out of here. Anyone that hasn't been here before, I can't actually show the panel, so I'm just going to have to describe what happened, and we pick up in a flashback with what was going on with AO2 and Kinjaku a few chapters ago. So AO2 beheads Kinjaku, and then all of the cursed spirits inside of Geto start pouring out. Akatu calls Ra, and they just start tearing through these cursed spirits, but then some of them start like picking up Kaku's severed head, and we see Kinjaku add the rule that we saw in the previous chapter about Megami now having the rights to start the merger. This next part's a bit hard to decipher because the translations are very rough at this point, but Kinjaku is essentially monologuing, saying that, like, of course I would have had a backup plan and insurance plan, referring to passing it over to Suka with the new rule. He's saying something about like using the culling game as a foundation for the murder, so something like that. It's at this point that amongst the outpouring of curses from Kaku's body, we see this fetal version of Tengen, and it rockets away, so it is heading towards Sukuna. This is the thing that Swa ended up eating in the last chapter, and Kinjaku kind of gives his last words saying that, like, I won't say that I didn't enjoy the last 1,000 years, and I'm glad that he was the last one I got to play with, and I think it's talking about Takaba and not AO2, but it's not entirely clear. Kuz, these are rough translations, and then his final words are, now it's your turn. We then see a panel of AO2 driving his blade straight into Kaku's brain, and then we flash forward back to the present with AO2 staring down Suka. We're then privy to some internal monologue from AO2, who is looking at Suck's recently regenerated hand, and he's saying that his reverse curse technique output is coming back, so it won't be long before his domain expansion is online. He also notices that Higuma was defeated, and he feels bad that he wasn't here sooner, but he reveals that the plan was they wanted Ra to be there when Kinjaku was killed so that Ra could deal with the massive outpouring of curses. We then get a couple pages of AO2 stabbing in with his sword, but Swa grabs it, and it appears as if he's using slashes like in the palm of his hand to deflect the blade and have it not harm him as he grabs it. In O2's inner monologue, we know that he's struggling with guilt because he wanted to be the one to end Kinjaku. He feels bad that he wasn't here, thinking this is all his fault, so he says no more excuses, and he casts his domain. We then get this beautiful double spread of like all of this rubble, and amongst the rubble are hundreds of swords sticking out of the ground everywhere, and inside is AO2 and Suka, and the translation says this domain is called Authenticity Mutual Love, but I'm assuming it's more like authentic love or something like that, so going to immediately cast Hollow Wicker Basket. But AO2 goes in for the striped end, then he uses Thin Icebreaker Euro Curse techniques, so it appears as if maybe he has access to all of the curse techniques he's copied, and here AO2 then says that in this domain I'm going to finish everything. So we're then privy to some internal monologue from Swa, and he's trying to basically piece together the strategy that they're using against him, and again these are really rough translations, so bear with me here, but essentially he's saying that from Megami's memory he knows that AO2 curse technique is copy, and he thinks that the technique imbued in this domain expansion is Angel's curse technique, which is forcing him to use Hollow Wicker Basket, excuse me, and then he's going to basically use unlimited versions of the other curse techniques he's copied in here, and then in the next panel we see that Yuji is also inside of this domain, and Suck's internal monologue continues saying, from that brat's hits they're going to try and pull me off of Megami's body, so what I think this is confirmation that Yuji has some sort of soul manipulation or soul cleave, nope, pun intended there, and that is going to try and extract Suka away from Megami, and Suka says, good for you, you finally have a role, and that's where the chapter freaking ends. And then what I think is the editor's note at the end of the chapter says the new and the old main character going to battle. This chapter is mint, y'all. You got to look it up. You got to look at these pages. Holy, we got UT's domain expansion. I got a lot of thoughts, but I need to let this process, and I need to wait for more official translations, or at least better translations. But holy, you'll let me know your thoughts